The world champion Gukesh Domaraju is here. He's taking on Hikaru Nakamura, third round of the Norway Chess 2025. Gukesh on the bottom of the leaderboard, losing both his classical games. The first one against Magnus Carlsen, the second one against Arjun Erigaisi. His opponent Hikaru Nakamura, who is on the top of the leaderboard right now with 4.5 points, just having beaten Magnus in the Armageddon and in round 1 Fabiano Caruana. Wow, that's huge. And Gukesh and Hikaru have played some classical games, 2-win candidates. Hikaru has also beaten Gukesh in Norway Chess 2023 with the black pieces. The guest of honor makes the first move. Gukesh takes it back. The players are now ready. They shake hands and we are ready to go. Gukesh, what will be his first move? He opens the game with 1 e4 and you can see Hikaru looking in the distance because, you know, Gukesh could have even opened with d4. This is the first white game for Gukesh in the tournament. He had 2 blacks in the first 2 rounds. Knight comes out to f3, attacking the e5 pawn. Knight comes out to c6. And Gukesh goes bishop to c4. The Italian is on the board. Now the knight comes out to f6, putting pressure on the e4 pawn, and d3 played here. The bishop comes out to e7 and Gukesh simply castles. Now bishop e7 is a very interesting variation. Black also castles because you are kind of not playing this active move with bishop c5, but on the other hand there are these more fighting opportunities as the bishop is placed in a more safe location. By the way, knight a5 is threatened now to win this bishop, so a4 played by Gukesh, now making a square for the bishop on a2. It's all well-known opening theory. Knight comes to a5, attacking the bishop here. And Gukesh plays his bishop back to a2. You can see Hikaru trying to catch a glimpse of the openings of other games. Pawn to c5 played here, gaining space. Yes, it does weaken the d5 square a bit, but that's something that is well known. Bishop d2 played here by Gukesh. He's attacking the knight on a5. And this position has been played before. There are some well-known games. Knight goes back to c6. And now one way to continue this position is to go knight c3. But Gukesh goes with his knight to a3 here. And the plan could be to push the pawn to c3 and b4. So h6 played by Hikaru. And Gukesh goes pawn to c3. This b4 can become a very potent move there. Bishop e6 by Hikaru. And now maybe not the most accurate. Maybe a6 is the most accurate move here. Bishop e6. And you can see Gukesh takes a bit of time, 2 minutes on the clock, takes on e6. And now f takes e6 by Hikaru. The pawn comes up to b4, gaining space in the position. And perhaps taking on b4 is the smartest thing to do, but b6 played by Hikaru. He's trying to keep the structure, so if Gukesh takes, he'll take back with the b pawn. This central clump of pawns looks great. But Gukesh now jumps in with his knight. He's looking at the knight, maybe coming to e3. Maybe this b5 followed by a5 could be a very potential idea. Queen e8 by Hikaru. Well, Hikaru senses that there could be attacking opportunities with Queen g6, knight h5, rook opening up, knight jumping to f4. He pushes his pawn to b5. Now this knight has to move, and then later on a5 is possible. So the knight goes to d8. And Gukesh goes d4. It was quite possible to continue this game with queen b3 and a5, and white was better, but Gukesh has gone for a more direct approach right into the center of the position. He's played d4, and you can see Hikaru looking at his opponent there. He's a bit surprised with this move. He takes here after 13 minutes of thought. He takes d4. And Gukesh responds back with c takes d4. He takes with the pawn. Now knight takes d4 is possible, and I think white is doing well here, and Gukesh can go for it, but instead he goes bishop b4. A very interesting move. Maybe he wants to take on d4 with the queen. He's also attacking the d6 point. So if e5, then he would like to take on d6. And Hikaru goes for this interesting move. Knight takes e4. He sacks a piece because after rook takes e4, he would like to get it back with the move d5. That's the reason he's played this. Knight e4. Rook takes e4 by Gukesh. He simply takes the knight. And now pawn to d5. Hikaru pushes the pawn. Now the bishop is hanging, the knight is hanging, the rook is hanging. I think it makes sense to start with bishop takes e7. Gukesh takes the bishop. Hikaru takes it back so that, Gukesh doesn't take his rook. And now rook takes d4. Right now Hikaru is a pawn up, but he's going to lose this pawn. D takes c4. The thing which Gukesh may want to do is not take with the rook, because then knight b7 and the knight comes to the c5 square. And so he goes knight e5. And the idea now is that if you go knight b7, I have knight g6 forking here. So you can't easily do that. Hikaru goes queen g5, attacking the knight here. And you can play queen e2, which is a very strong move here. And then maybe put the knight on c6, later get this pawn on c4. White would be seriously better in this position, but Gukesh decides to take with the knight. Knight takes c4. He takes this pawn. Now the material is even. You can see that black has a weakness on e6. But is that relevant? Because if the knight comes to c5, it would be super strong. It would not only be active, it would also defend e6. It would attack a4. And Hikaru, he's very quick to do that. Knight b7. He has 44 minutes on the clock. Gukesh has maintained a small time lead with 1 hour, 1 minute on the clock. And now the queen comes to e2. A nice move putting pressure on the e6 pawn. The knight goes to c5. Attacks the a4 pawn, but there's also a fork looming large on b3. So he brings his rook to the center of the board, rook d1. White is maybe teeny tiny better, but Hikaru is a beautiful defender. He goes rook f4. Amazing move. Wants to trade rooks, wants to double down the f file. And for Gukesh to create something here is not easy, but he does it with a5. I like this move a lot, because with a5 he's trying to destabilize the knight on c5. Hikaru takes the pawn. And Gukesh takes it back. Knight takes a5. And the knight could jump into c6 next. Let's see how Hikaru continues. He takes the rook on d4. Rook takes d4 and rook d8 played, trading the final set of rooks and getting closer to the draw. If a draw is draw happens in classical, we go into an Armageddon where Hikaru is a beast, having beaten Magnus yesterday, and I think Hikaru backs himself to beat Gukesh in the 10 versus 7 format. Knight c6 played here by Gukesh, attacking the queen on d8. Queen b6 is necessary and a good move. You can see Hikaru just hesitating, and in 2 moves plays queen d7, but this is not a great move. The reason for it is now Gukesh can go h4, which he plays. He wants to clamp down the position with h5. The knight is putting pressure here. All of a sudden, very uncomfortable position for Hikaru. And you can see he plays queen d6 by taking close to 23 minutes here and simply blunders. The only move was knight a4 to come to c3, and even that was super sharp and very difficult to manage. Queen d6 just blunders the a7 pawn. And see, maybe Hikaru just very surprised, like what is going on in his mind. Knight takes a7. Maybe there's some plan that he has. He goes knight d3. You can already see him a bit shaken up there. Knight d3. And yes, there you see Hikaru shaking his head. It's very easy to understand what's happening. I think there was some miscalculation there. Hikaru just missed something. Not so clear what it was. Knight comes back to c6. And now king h8 played. But Gukesh is now simply a pawn up, and that too a super healthy pawn up. He defends his knight. He's looking at f7 followed by knight e7. b6, b7 comes as a threat. King g8 played. And now g3 played here. And this is Gukesh just improving his position. Knight goes back to c5. King comes up to g2. And Hikaru goes back queen d7. There's just literally no counterplay he has. In fact, now queen f4. What a nice move. Because check, if king h7, you can go queen f8 and knight e7. You go queen d5 check. The king has to move away. Yes, king h2, king h7. And now Gukesh trying to find the final blow. I think the final blow could happen in 2 ways. One is this pawn starts moving ahead. The other is you just go in. Yes, he's going for the king. Knight e7. And Gukesh getting close to his first ever classical win against Hikaru Nakamura. Knight to d3. And knight e7. I think that should be game over. And look at Gukesh. He keeps the calmness on his face, but you can feel a small spring in his step. You can feel that energy in his eyes. Queen g8 was a mate, so the queen came back to d8. And now just chopping off another pawn. And that works, because if knight takes f2, there's queen f5 check. When the king goes back to h8, there is a check, and you will then clean up the knight. So queen f5, and this is over, and Hikaru resigns. And I think maybe he's just talking about queen b6 there, and a5 move in that position where he just played like very quickly this move, queen d7, and just lost his way somewhere, Hikaru. And with this loss, Gukesh actually makes a comeback in the tournament, and this comes on a very nice day for Gukesh, because it's 28th May in Norway, But in India, it's 29th May, and that's Gukesh's birthday already when this game got over. So Gukesh turns 19 years old, and what a way to celebrate his 19th birthday with a win over Hikaru. And well, the world champion scores a good win here, and I think this will definitely spur him on in this tournament. And Gukesh looking for his score. The pawn, missing pawn there. Puts it back, puts all the pieces back on the board like he always does. And congratulations to Gukesh for a very nice win. You can see he is looking relieved.